Welcome back to this week's episode. I get to share with you somebody who I got to meet and get to know and has so much magic to share in this world. I want to share with you the aspects of what this beautiful woman has taken as far as a very big need in the coaching industry, in any niche actually, and really bring it to light so you can understand finally who your ideal client is. So welcome, Amy Yamada. Amy is a business mentor, an AI marketer, and the founder of IdealClient.ai. And she serves established online entrepreneurs who are committed to making an impact through purpose and expertise. So, we've connected because I love helping people discover their purpose as well. And you've got this seasoned business coach, this speaker side of yourself, and this integral AI marketing expert that's all blended in to really help people zone in on their authentic marketing, messaging, and deep human connection. So, welcome, Amy. I can't wait to dive into this and really understand how you even got into this aspect of business and what your journey's been. So, I'll let you take it from here, but I'm so excited to be sharing you with the audience today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. I'm super pumped to be here as well. And it's funny when you're sharing even just about kind of my background. It's fascinating always to look back and see where I was even a year ago, or 3 years ago, or 12 years ago. It's just like it's evolved over time for sure. And I absolutely love being an entrepreneur. I love personal development. I love growing. I'm always on this journey of curiosity and so it's been a lot of fun to be in the coaching space that has also evolved into now that, the last year and a half, the AI space. And in my case, bringing humanity into AI, which people sometimes kind of have that like question mark face, like, wait, what? So I'm excited to dive into that and really share with people what my experience has been with AI. So if it's something that is of value to the audience, where they can see where we can actually leverage this tool to not replace us, but to amplify our authentic voice and to really leverage it as a tool to attract our authentic ideal client. And so I couldn't be more grateful for where I'm in my journey now and where it's headed. And yeah, so I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Okay. Me too. I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm thinking the whole time, like, yeah, like I dove in. I have your AI. I know what you're talking about. And it's so funny too, because we can fear the thing that we don't know. And so we can fear the thing that gets swayed by the loudest voice as well. And so we hear a lot right now in the online space about, oh, AI and the dangers of it. And yeah, with the intention behind AI, it can be a lot of different things. But you have the intention of human connection. You have the intention of utilizing this tool to expand what we don't know or what we're not able to access within our own self of what we think that we don't know. So we can really lend into clarity. What is this profile of this ideal, authentic connection that we're looking for in our work? And what are the wordings? What are the messages? What is the energy behind that message that really brings it to life? And I was just thinking as you were talking, I'm like, how did we actually meet? And it's always funny. Today has been such a divine alignment of connections, people that are in my new space and talking on podcasts, people who I've known. But when I really think about it, it's come from my passion of creating retreats. And then through that particular avenue, I met a mutual friend of ours, Sherry Rosenthal, that I learned to begin to build bigger retreats with. And then through that connection, which again, human, deep, beautiful connections, I was introduced to her friend, which was you, Amy, who's talking about VIP experiences and really identifying your ideal client in the way that you are. And so, of course, I'm like, I'm going to go check out who this person is. And like, here we are. We've had multiple conversations. We've worked together. I've learned so much about this new aspect of business. But today, I really want to focus on the impact that really knowing who you're talking to and not getting so tripped up in like comparing yourself to someone else, but letting your authentic messaging come through, why there's the importance of that. So there was a couple things that we wanted to cover, but let's take it from the AI perspective of what you're bringing to the world and why it matters and why that tool is so important, because I know it changed everything for me in not just who my ideal client is or my authentic person, but the scope that was able to be presented beyond what I was just, thinking about. I'll say thinking.
Totally.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
share.
So great. It's funny because I think back to even just going back a little ways, getting into the world of AI. I would have never imagined that I would dive into the world of AI. However, I am very passionate about messaging and words and communication and marketing psychology and human behavior. And so when ChatGPT first became, mainstream and I dove into it, I thought, okay, initially I made it about me, right? I was like, how can I use this in my business and make sure that if I'm using it for creating content or copy and marketing materials, that it sounds like my authentic voice, like in the written word. And so I experimented, and finally cracked the code on how to train ChatGPT and then Claude, and just like really found a way to have it sound like my authentic voice. So I was like, oh, this is great. It's like a team member that can support me in all the copy and content that we create, which is how a lot of entrepreneurs use it initially. And then I started training my clients on it all throughout this past year. Like all throughout last year, I should say. And then halfway through the year, we started thinking about, well, hold on, even though, yes, we want it to sound like our authentic voice, to be, really true to how we speak to people, how we communicate with people. What about the other side of communication, which is the receiver, right? If there's a sender and a receiver, the receiver is your audience member, the receiver is your ideal client. So that's when we started to think about, okay, it's not just about training ChatGPT or whatever AI platform you're talking about on our authentic voice. It's about training ChatGPT on your ideal client. So we started experimenting with that, and then fast forward to like late last year, early this year, we developed our own AI software that's called the Ideal Client Handbook. And the reason why we created this was that we noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle not just with identifying who their ideal client is, but how to really speak their language and how to understand them on a psychological level, an emotional level. And this product that we designed kept it really simple. It really just asks two questions in the intake form, which is, what is your purpose? So why do you do what you do? And then what is your desired outcome or transformation for your ideal client? And then you fill in a blank on your business type, and then you press submit. Goes into our behind the scenes, goes into this production of Hue and goes through a complex AI-based process and sequence. And then within about 10 to 15 minutes, it emails you the most in-depth report on who your ideal client is. It shares the transformation, an overview of a profile of who you're meant to serve. And then it goes into all these in-depth insights, like what is their current state? What is their aspirational state? So you understand their gaps. What validation do they seek? What would they say in their own words about their fears or frustrations or aspirations? What are their happiness drivers? What would they write in a journal entry that they wouldn't share with the rest of the world? I mean, I could go on and on. It ends up being about 28 to 30 pages in length. So it can be a bit overwhelming. That's the feedback that I get. However, the other feedback I get is that it's frighteningly accurate. And to have this depth of knowledge about your ideal client and know that you can use this to inform your marketing, your messaging, your offers, it's everything. I mean, before and even now with AI, I truly believe that when we deeply understand who we are meant to serve and we can speak their language from an emotional intelligence level, then it opens up so many doors to how we can best support our client. So yeah, I'm so passionate about this, as you can tell.
I love it. I'm also a client. No, I'm just kidding. And just because it's been everything, it's like, I want to get it right. I want to speak. And we can get so caught up in the fear of not getting it right that we're not even listening or remembering the journey that we took that was very similar. And so even seeing the fear, seeing all these aspects that come through on this report, it's eye-opening, because it's like, that's where the tear comes from. It's like, you've connected so deeply in that part of me I forgot along my plight, along the way, along our business entrepreneurship journey, that it brings us so back, not even to the beginning, but just where we were when we were navigating this particular thing. We're no longer there, right? And we're always helping someone just behind where we've been with that passion and purpose of how we want to present it. So I love that you shared that. And I'd love to know, so are those the two irresistible questions that are in your marketing? Like, what's your purpose?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I could have a jump to that. Well, okay, so from a marketing 101 level, two questions that are often asked are, who do you serve and what problem do you solve? And that's really helpful as well. You'll hear a bunch of business coaches. I've asked those questions before, like, who do you serve? What problem do you solve? But I like going deeper on that first question and really getting to know who really is my ideal client
Yeah.
based on my purpose and my desired outcome for them. Like, what is my wish for them? And when we're able to even just answer these two questions, just your answers can become irresistible messaging because it's true to who you are, and it attracts, like, you become a stronger magnet to who you're meant to serve because it's authentic and honest about your purpose and your desired transformation. So for example, even though I call myself a business coach and I have for a long time, people who've worked with me, they sometimes say to me like, Amy, you're like, no offense to business coaches, right? There's like, you go so much deeper. Like you're like a deep connection coach. You're a words and messaging, like authentic messaging coach, a marketing coach. And I think the reason why they say that is because when I speak or when I communicate, I'm not just thinking about like, oh, how can I make myself sound great? It's like, no, I want to think about what are my ideal clients thinking about all the time? What are their pain points? What are their aspirations? Where can I connect with them on a heart level so they see that I understand them at that level, because we are the same in some ways. We're a reflection of one another. And like you said, Michele, like I'm just a little further along or a lot further along, depending on the person, but where it's like, hey, I see you, I feel you. So they feel seen and heard and understood by me. And they feel like, oh, this person's actually on my side. There's someone who can help me. So I just believe in that deep connection.
So somebody gets the AI software, they put their information in, they have it, like, and now they're getting clear and they see all these things. Now you've got this 30 pages. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do next? Like,
That's the number one question. Yeah, the
what's
number one
the
question
next
is like,
thing, right?
what
And
now? What do I do with this?
right. And so, because one of the things that I remember you saying in one of the workshops that we did was you're going to look at it, give yourself the space to read through it all and absorb it and feel it, not from a place of remembering everything or marking it, but like maybe highlight as you're going through, but take the time, grab your coffee, be with it, make it be a part of your experience, and then do it again and then read it again. And it was the one of the things that kind of held with me. And so then you can have this big marked up thing. Like what do you see as the next thing that really comes to play out in this process? Since you are coaching in this field, you take this tool and then what?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I definitely agree with my past coaching of like taking time to like read through it. I like grab a coffee or tea, like care enough about your future clients to read through it. At least read through the first part. I mean, I would say read through all of it. I actually think it's really fun to read through it to see
Amazing.
how did our system and AI provide this information to you, based on just a few questions. I mean, that's something people get a little skeptical about. They're like, oh, come on, Amy, how can it know so much just based on these questions? I'm like, well, it's intelligence. It's taking your answers, and then every answer it comes up with builds upon the last answer. So there's a mechanism on the back end that's tapping into intelligence. Like I've actually nicknamed artificial intelligence to just intelligence. Like
Yeah.
people are not tapping into that part of it for the most part. And so I'm like, and it's giving this information. So the to answer your question about now what I would do is read through it. And then in our software, we also have a quick start guide, because we got that question so often. Here's a Ideal Client Handbook quick start guide to just know how to start using it inside your business, in a very simple, initial steps kind of a way. And I primarily use it as an AI input. So whether you haven't touched AI or you've barely experienced, Chat GPT, or you are deep into it like I am, I would say that it's very simple to download it as a text file, which is the steps to that are even in the quick start guide. If you don't know how to do that, that's okay. And then you upload it. Just think of it as uploading a file into ChatGPT or whatever AI platform language model you're using, in order to say, hey, ChatGPT, this is who my ideal client is on the deepest level. And then tap into the intelligence part of ChatGPT to learn more and to think about something that you're working on. Maybe you're working on a workshop or a talk, or maybe you're wanting to improve how you communicate with your ideal clients one-on-one. Just start asking a question. Just say, hey, I have this thing coming up. I have a call coming up with one of my potential clients, and I want to know what are the best questions to ask them, or what are some things that might come up, or I've got this workshop coming up and I want it to be around messaging, but I want to know what would be most helpful, what would be more specific that could help, right? So we're not just saying, hey, write this copy for me, right? That's how a lot of entrepreneurs use it. And that's how I started using it myself. But
Right.
instead actually have a conversation with it, right? Have a conversation with ChatGPT with the knowledge of your ideal client. I mean, I could totally geek out. We've actually built out a lot of our own custom GPTs at this point. One of them is called Pocket Client. So you can upload our ideal client handbook into our Pocket Client, and then it's as if you're having a conversation with your ideal client,
That
right?
was my
At any
question. I'm
time.
like, can you actually take the whole thing and like, that's so
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, that's just it. But this is where it's the future is now, and it's only going to accelerate as we move forward. And I don't say that as a fear tactic. I say it as, it's almost like when people have any skepticism or fear, I'm like, well, you know, at one point we may have been scared of the internet, or at one point we couldn't imagine carrying around a phone. That, I mean, it's so much more than a phone now, right? Like we couldn't imagine like having all the things that are in this machine right here, carrying it around everywhere. So to me, AI is that next wave that is here now. And so I'm just really encouraging, especially entrepreneurs, like this is where we are already, and this is where it's heading, and it's moving so quickly. So I would say that if you are not yet using it, I definitely recommend to start playing with it. And if you want to leverage it as a marketing resource, as a marketing tool, then definitely like tap into products like this, you know, the Ideal Client Handbook, and understand how to train AI on who you're meant to serve, so that when you interact with it, it's not just spitting out like generic things that it might spit out if you're using it the way most people are using it. We're going a lot deeper and bringing humanity into it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
To me, it feels like, and I agree with you. Some people pop things in there and like, oh, I'll just use that, right? And it doesn't lack, I mean, it doesn't have the personality, it doesn't have your story, it doesn't have your back experiences. But when you build a profile or you're having this conversation, it can be a beautiful learning tool. How might this person think? How might this person be showing up to show you a way that's going to connect within what you're really trying to say? And
Yes,
right,
exactly.
just like if we're having a conversation now, like what do we really want to say, like what are the things that are coming up, and to not be afraid to let that part of you be seen. And I think sometimes that AI can see us so well that it can feel frightening because we don't know who we are. And so there's all of this mixed into, this is why you go deep in conversation, this is why I can't help but take people deep into the truth of who they are, what's going on with them, what you think is here and what's really under the underbelly of the why, right? And so when we think of building deeper human connection, we have to be willing to see ourselves building and being part of that deeper human connection without just a default program running every single time. Like, that's funny words.
Yeah.
um, so what are those deeper conversations of yourself that helped you get here? So I'm curious, like, as I'm just kind of talking away here, like when you first started out and before you even became um, into the AI model or even the business that you're directing now, like what were those pain points for you that wanted to help you make life easier for someone else? And I know, like, for me, I enjoyed this conversation because I was like, you too, you got this? You share that because I think that helps people understand like you're not alone and you're probably exactly where you're meant to be. What will you do next with this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, there's so much. How much time do we have?
Ten more
I would
minutes.
say, when I think about it, I'll just think about like when I first started really tapping into the AI space and bringing in authentic messaging, authentic marketing, humanity into it. Um, I think it was like really trusting myself on a deep level, and trusting my curiosity, and trusting that like the reason why this message is surrounding me is not because it's here to distract me, but I'm feeling called to be a pioneer, to be someone that's on the forefront of this in my own way. Now there's people who've been in AI a lot longer than me, and I've now met a lot of these AI power users. And usually, just be real, I'm the only woman in the room, you know, like it's usually a group of men who are incredibly like just brilliant developers, and they've just created their own AI based softwares and platforms. And so for one, I mean, whoever's listening, I am taking a stand for women also, to not be afraid of it. I think sometimes there can be a feeling of like, because it's so male dominated, that as a woman, we can feel, I'll speak for myself. I used to feel a bit intimidated, like, oh, this is like something that men who know how to code and do all this other stuff, like, like it can feel like, oh, and instead like not be afraid and just say, okay, what can I learn about this? And what can I be in contribution? Like, how can I be in contribution to this that brings in my skill set, my gifts, my expertise? And honestly, part of it was vision inspired and part of it was fear inspired. So the fear inspired part was, wow, what if this really does replace people? What will that world look like if we allow this to replace people in some way, shape, or form? And when I really just got, so there was that fear, but then there was also that vision of like, what if I could bring humanity into it and us work together as a team versus having this replace us? And just on a deeper soul level, like I was talking to a client about this the other day because she had some fears around AI in this very space. And I said, I just looked right at her. I said, nothing can ever replace you. Like, if you really think about it, do you really think anything can replace you? No, like you're this beautiful soul of a being. Like, no, like no one can replace me. Nothing, not one person, not one experience, not one, like nothing can replace me. No one can take me away from me. And that to me is a solid come from, because that applies to anything in life. It's like when we face something challenging or painful or heartbreaking or challenging and exciting or whatever it is, it's like, okay, no matter what happens, no one can take me from me, right? So just having that mentality has helped me to approach AI in that way as well. It's like, dude, nobody can replace, like this thing, it can't replace me. So why don't I see how I can work with it? Because it is brilliant. It is intelligence. I hate that we use the word artificial in front of it because there's a negativity to it. And of course, I still have some fears around it, but I'm not going to lead my life or how I approach AI with fear. I'm going to think about how can I learn more about it and see how I can be in contribution to it so that I bring the humanity into it versus it replacing us.
Absolutely. And then we're into that deeper conversation of, are we going to live life in fear or are we going to live life in love? Because that's also part of the intelligence, right? They're both equally available. Hang on one moment because my dog has managed to open the door. We're just going to,
Yeah, all good.
and when he does that, you can hear everything else out there. And I just want to make sure we don't have that interference. But that love versus fear conversation isn't anything. It's the polarity in life, and the reason why we can't take away from who we are as human is because we each have our own unique expression of that. There is a life force that runs through each of us with a purpose, with an intention, with a series of experiences and thought processes and perceptions and the way that our heart connects to things that is not like anyone else in the world. And so what I love about that so much is it's the intention behind which we choose to face these things, not only this, but everything else in our life. And are we willing to see when we're operating out of fear? And what would it be like just to trust a little bit more and move into creating more of what we love? If we're doing that, then we don't have as much power going into the fear. Right. And so same thing with AI, it's the intention from which you use it. It's like anything else. We're at actual technology. I just got back from a Greg Braden conference where he speaks about the science, the cells, the human body, and that beautiful mind-heart coherence, which is where we're most aligned, is when everything is aligned and we're in flow. And that's usually from that resonant space of trusting ourselves, trusting that this body can navigate things that our mind can navigate, but they don't work separately. And so when we know who we are and then we bring in tools that help enhance that, it can only expand and amplify. It's limitless. So then when you think of the intelligence on its own, it can only be what it is until we pull in and add and contribute our experiences in it as well. And then it becomes a broader, expansive awareness of what else is possible, which helps navigate us out of that fear into more possibility. So that's what was kind of coming through. But I could see where that's very challenging in a space that's dominated, male dominated, but also bringing that feminine energy into it and that feminine intuition and that whole aspect of your own beingness as well, which is what I think makes this project and this mission that you're on so extremely extraordinary.
Yeah, totally. The other thing that comes to my heart and mind is like, it's also about adoption, right? It's like, if we choose to adopt this or be open to it, then it's about shifting our way of thinking, right? So in the past, if I had a question, I would Google it, right? And now, like in my household, we chat GPT it, right? It's like, oh, I have a question about this. I had a really wonderful weekend this past weekend with my family. I live in Seattle. We went up to Anacortes and we went on this whale watching tour, and it was just an amazing, just yummy weekend with the family. And one of the on Sunday, we were walking back to the hotel, and we saw this couple that was looking at this bush that had these like really lovely flowers on it. They were just like staring at it, and they were on their phones. They were looking at each other, and so I'm a curious person. I'm like, what's going on here? Just like pointing my nose in their business. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, we love this. We're thinking about what we want to bring back home, like what we want to garden in our home, at our home garden. Can't find my words here. And so Ken, my partner Ken and I were talking about it, and he's like, he just took a photo of it and he asked ChatGPT, and immediately it knew what it was. And so it's just about like, unless we've adopted it, we wouldn't know to take that step of taking the photo and asking ChatGPT versus like, oh, let me describe, like, let me Google it and describe it and see how I can, right? Like, why would we not save that time? That would be like, I'm going to do like super advanced math instead of using my calculator. It's just like, but why? We have access to this now, and we can have it in fingertips like that. So it was really cool to help that couple out, who I hope will now find this, plants that they can put in their home garden.
Yeah.
But it's about adoption, right? Like, are you willing to be open? Are you willing to adopt it and shift our ways? And sometimes I think we can get set in our ways versus growing and advancing. I mean, I've done that myself. There are times when and the AI world is moving so fast. There's things where I'm like, wait, what is that again? What is, what is that, right? I constantly feel behind, but I'm like, I'm not going to let that stop me from
No.
continuing to lean in. So
Well,
what,
and I think that's part of being human. I think that's part of the experience. We can expect ourselves, we should have done this already, we should know better, we do all these things. And honestly, you're never going to know all the things, and you're always going to be experiencing an evolution of yourself, hopefully. Otherwise we get kind of mundane and we just collapse, and all the energy gets sucked out of us. So it's always about just integrating and adapting as well. I was thinking of the word adapt while you were saying adopt. It's like, yes, adopt and adapt, because
yeah,
we can adapt. We're built to adapt.
yeah, that's
And we
right.
don't do it alone. We're not alone. We don't do it alone. And like when we bring forces together, each other, connections, we can create something we couldn't even possibly have fathomed, which is so good, which is kind of the whole essence behind it anyway, right?
Right.
I love this so much. What a great conversation. I love asking all of my clients. I know what my journey's been through purpose, through presence, through prosperity, which is the reason I chose those three words for this podcast. But when you think of your journey and your adaptation, even into the experiences that you've come into, right, from where you started and where you are now, what does that mean to you to have that purpose, that presence, and that prosperity in your life? What do those expansive words mean?
So what, sorry, say that last part again.
What do those words mean to you? What's that expansive definition? Because I know you love words.
I do love words. Let me tune in.
Yep, you got
Let
to.
me get my heart space. Let me tune in. Let me get my heart space. You know, when I think about purpose, for example, I really think about my life's journey so far, right? Like looking back at my life's journey, I think about what are the stories that stand out, because I don't remember every minute or even every single day of my life so far, but I remember the stories of my life, right? And there have been times when I've done some journaling, like what are the stories of my life? That time that I got lost when I was 5, that time that this happened, that time that this happened, right? And just look at like what are the moments and stories of my life that really stand out, that I remember the most. And also like what have been the most important relationships in my life, so I think that part of the beauty of this life's journey is to really see your own unique, beautiful life's journey as this unfolding story, and that has meaning and purpose behind it.
Mm.
And so even when I look back, I know Steve Jobs had said, like, you can always connect the dots looking back, right? You can't connect them moving forward, but you can always connect them looking back. I see this, this beautiful tapestry of just this woven thread of like deep human connection, a desire to be accepted, a desire to not feel like I need to put on the mask of perfection to be loved, a desire to be authentic to who I am, right? Like I can pinpoint from childhood till now all these moments, these either exciting or wonderful or painful or grieving moments of my life where everything is revealed if we just get intimate with it and look at it from that perspective. And I think the fast-paced world, sometimes we just don't do that. Sometimes I don't do that. And usually if I ever feel off alignment, it's because I haven't deeply connected within myself in a while. And it's time to, just sit down, be quiet, go within, even if it feels uncomfortable. Say, okay, what is it that I need to know right now? What if I allowed myself to reflect or simply be present and tune in? So that's
Yeah.
a beautiful
There can be a
question.
lot of noise on the outside, and so much of that inner connection with ourself is where the wisdom really drops in, which is so good. What would you say prosperity is?
Prosperity, great question. Okay, I gotta tune in again
Yeah.
because other get in my head.
Weird. Hmm.
Yeah, prosperity. Um, to me, prosperity is like related to maybe perhaps because I use the word abundance more than I use the word prosperity. I know these are two different words, but prosperity to me, it has an energy of abundance, an energy of like abundance in all things. So really being prosperous in your life, really being limitless, unstoppable, and to recognize that when we notice ourselves hitting an invisible ceiling or an invisible wall, it's not really there. And so when I think about prosperity, I think of opportunity. I think of again, pausing and getting quiet and seeing that the prosperity is always around you, in front of you. And I didn't always believe this. I would hear other, motivational speakers say things like this, like, yeah, right. I roll my, like, okay, I think they had a little skepticism. However, as an entrepreneur of a little over 12 years now and still on my journey, I can clearly see where I tend to hold myself back, where I can self-sabotage because, as I've grown, I'll hit another invisible ceiling. And it's like, okay, what's that about? Because it's not about circumstances or the outer world, it's what's going on the inside. And what it needs is a moment to go within and to ask questions like this. What is prosperity? What is abundance? What am I believing about myself right now that's just not true? What would I like to believe of myself? So I like to be in the inquiry of who I am and what I stand for, and how I can also, while I can seek evidence of not good enough, I can also seek evidence of badassery and look back at my life and say, okay, look at what you have overcome and created and learned, and how, like, just look at it for a moment and honor who you are. And you'll see that you are like that book, right? Jen Sincero, like you are a badass. Like, even if you don't see yourself that way, if you just look, you will see the evidence that you've done it, and you've survived 100% of your days, and that's pretty abundant in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I love that so much. And it's so true. It's like both perspectives are available. Which one are we going to honor more of? And so many of us, we lose ourselves along the way. We give ourselves our power away. We've had power taken from us in different aspects. And it really is a journey of just recognizing that and honoring that for where it's led you, and stepping back into where you're yet to explore, like coming back into your power of choice, your decision, and your creation. I believe we're here to be creators. What do we want to create in this lifetime, right? That we get to experience. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and what beautiful things you're working on in the world. Where can people find you?
yeah, I would say, well, I'll be sure to share my links with you. So I have the website that I've had forever, my amyyamada.com, and then our most recent website, which is IdealClient.ai. So if you want to check that out, you can check that out. We really just visualize this website being the go-to resource for anything related to Ideal Client. So if there's ever any confusion on who am I meant to serve, then definitely check me out, IdealClient.ai. It's got some blogs and resources, and then our signature product, the Ideal Client Handbook. And you can always, I am pretty searchable. If you just, if you go to Facebook, Amy Yamada, if you go to Instagram, it's at Amy Yamada. So everything's under my name. However, if you Google my name, you'll see all my stuff. And then there's a famous Japanese romance novelist that writes trashy romance novels. And I'm sure she's great, but that's not me, just to be clear.
Oh my God, that's so funny. It reminds me of like when I Google my name now, you'll see all the stuff I do, and then you'll see like circus performer. Nope, that's not her. And then you'll see like, I think she's like a lawyer, accountant, or something. I'm like, nope, that's not me either. But it's so funny what comes up.
Totally, yeah. So,
Oh, I
but yeah,
love that.
yeah,
Well, I
just
encourage all of you guys, if you want to know more, if you're at that place like I was with that burning question, like who's my ideal client? Well, how can I know more? I highly recommend either reaching out to Amy or to going to the website. Anything else you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up today?
um, I'd say to just embrace the journey, just embrace all of it because this life is beautiful and it has its peaks and valleys. And I really believe that we're meant to embrace all of it. And when we do, that's when everything opens up, all the possibilities, all the new relationships and friendships and connections and adventures. And when I remind myself of that, then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna even in the thick of hard stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna be okay. Like somehow I'm gonna get through this. So I'd say embrace the journey.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And they listen back to this episode, guys. There's a lot of golden nuggets in here on from beginning to end. And so take those pieces, add them to your story, move forward with all of this wisdom. And I just wish you all the best. And thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to see what begins to unfold from this journey. And I'm super happy to know you and be a part of it.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you, everyone.
Bye for now.